Hello. Hi. Are you Portlandia fans? Okay. Very good. Full disclosure, I'm from Portland, so this has a double meaning for me. It's very cool. Without further ado, I'll introduce the co-creators and stars of Portlandia, Fred Armisen. And Carrie Brownstein.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Hello.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Welcome. Welcome to the SAG Foundation. We're happy to have you. We're glad to
Thanks,
be here.
Stacey.
Two of my favorite people. So
She's from Portland, by the way.
yes, I always, I already let them know. So it's good. So before you became Portland icons, which you are now, for better or worse, tell us a little bit about your history in music, which is very large, both of you. So I'll start with Fred.
I was a drummer in a few punk bands here and there, and I spent a lot of my 20s playing the drums and touring the country, and then I started playing drums for the Chicago version of Blue Man Group. They had Blue Man Group was in Boston and Chicago, and I did that for a couple years.
So you were blue, like blue?
No. There's three blue men and then three musicians above the stage lit by a black light.
Whoa.
So it's kind of green and red. So they play music throughout. And that's the first show business job I ever had where I got a check for doing something. And I remember it was $100 a show. And to me, it was like
very good.
But to me, it was like $1 million. Because if I did 3 shows, I was like $300.
Over the course of how long? Like 3 months, or?
Well, no, I mean over the course of I did it for like a couple years or so.
Oh,
yeah.
so 3 shows in 3 years. So you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean 3 shows, like 3 shows a week. I'm sorry, 3 shows a week.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So should we edit that?
No, we're good.
And then from there, I just started doing comedy, and that was where my music career ended, and then where comedy began.
And then you landed on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
That's right. And Carrie, growing up in Portland and then going to school in Tacoma, which is a place where no one has ever been to these places, but
I actually grew up in Seattle. I went to school in Olympia.
no, I was talking about myself.
Oh, I was like, okay, but that's.
No, I was just trying
I thought
to
you were
tell
like Carrie when you grew up in. Oh yeah, well that's very similar.
No,
Tacoma.
it's the same.
Did you go
but
to UPS?
I went to UPS. That's
All
right.
That's University of Puget Sound.
That's right. Another school no one's heard of. Yeah. But your music in Sleater-Kinney was like defined college for me, and it defined really like the sound of chicks rocking it in post-grunge. So congratulations.
Okay. Thanks.
And how did you get into a band? How do people do that? You translate your natural music skills, and then how did you gather with the ladies to form that group?
Well, I played guitar. I was going to school in Olympia at the very liberal arts college of the Evergreen State College. I was actually studying sociolinguistics, so I wasn't really doing anything music related per se, but everyone in Olympia, it seemed, was in a band, and I was very inspired by music, and that was sort of the lens through which I saw the world. It was kind of this like punk, independently spirited purview. So I just found people that I wanted to play music with, and when I was 21, we formed Sleater-Kinney.
And how were you guys received in the scene? Because as most music scenes, very sort of dude-dominated at the time.
Actually, Olympia was strangely matrifocal. It was there was a lot of women playing music in Olympia. The labels were co-run, male, female. So there had been this movement called Riot Girl that happened before Sleater-Kinney, and there were a lot of women playing punk there. So we were. That was less of an issue there, I think, and it wasn't until we started touring that we realized that other cities at the time in the late 90s weren't as sort of equitable in terms of male and female musicians.
So take us to, Fred, you're sort of winding down SNL, and you guys are conceiving this show, Portlandia. When, I know you had already known each other, but when did you decide to turn this into a series?
Well, we did these videos online, and it was called Thunder Ant. And it was just the two of us with a camera person going around Portland there were no jokes or anything. We just did it for us, really. Like, let's just make these weird little videos. And then there came a point where I was starting to think about what's going to come after Saturday Night Live, and I thought that this would be the right thing to pursue because we already had so much video, and we were ready to pitch it. We could just go and say, this is what it looks like. And then it just went from there.
How early on did you talk to Lorne about this? Because he's your producer now, but I know he was very supportive very early in the process.
Pretty early on. I mean, it all seemed to happen very quickly, going from why don't we pitch this as a show to Broadway Video, that's Lorne's company, being on board, and then for Lorne being on board. Lorne is very, he's a fan of things. He likes being involved in comedy, so he was very supportive.
And Carrie, how much acting or performing had you done that wasn't musical at this point?
As a kid, I was more of a theater kid than I was a musician. I would go to like clowning camps in the summer and like weird, you're like juggling scarves.
I need to know so much more about
like
this.
passing a ball around and stuff like that. And I did school plays in middle school and high school. So it wasn't foreign, although, making a television show is a lot different than going to theater camp. But the urge to perform and that wasn't strange to me. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I've never, wanted to do this. And it was definitely the first time, though, that I was tasked with something that was highly improvisational. But because of Thunder Ant, like Fred said, we had a time to kind of have a sensibility percolate, and we sort of developed a sensibility and a chemistry that was pretty innate, but we definitely had to kind of hone and work on.
And Fred, I think you told me at one point that IFC, they were the ones who convinced you to set it in Portland, because you said originally it was going to be just sort of a nondescript location.
We were going to maybe do it in New York, maybe in LA, just because we thought that that's how it's done.
Right.
And they thought, well, Portland is such, because we shot them all in Portland, and like it's such a big part of this show. Why don't you just set it there and make it about that?
Were you surprised that they were open to it being so specific?
Yes. In fact, I'm going to sort of change history and say that I came up with the idea. You can
You're a
do that. If you
genius.
say something enough, then eventually that becomes the story. So starting now, I just thought Portland is where it should be shot.
Mm-hmm. Makes perfect sense now that we think about it.
Yeah.
And I know IFC in so many ways functions totally differently from pretty much any other cable network, but did you actually have to shoot a pilot, or they just said, okay, you did? Okay.
Yeah, we shot a pilot, and we went to series pretty quickly, but we went through that process of pitching something pretty formally and then shooting a pilot. But because of Fred's schedule, he was still on SNL, so they picked us up for series within a matter of weeks, which I think is pretty rare. Some things just kind of, sit there for years.
Sure.
Yeah.
And knowing that you would need to shoot in the summer in between.
Yeah.
And did they have specific notes or feedback on the pilot that made you laugh, or were they just sort of like, okay, we're down?
Oh, I can't
we're down with
remember.
this?
What notes did they have?
I don't.
I can't remember any notes. It was mostly Jonathan Kreisel, our director, and us kind of like thinking, well, what can we fix? What can we make better? But I don't recall at the moment any notes. But that's just now.
There were notes, but,
There were, but like,
they weren't crazy enough.
And who would it have been?
It would have Dan Pasternak was.
Right, he would have said something.
Yeah. Some things
Clearly
were
he was
said.
happy with the product. So.
Yeah, he was happy with the product. I feel like the pilot ended up airing actually as the second episode.
Right.
Oh, right. That's
Yeah.
right. And then and we've talked about this before, but when you come up with your ideas for the sketches, how does just being in Portland figure into that? I know you keep notes of things you see, and how are you actually creating these concepts?
It has less to do with the city now. When we started, there were things that we noticed that we thought we've got to put this in, but now it's more generally about people and people trying to make their way and do the right thing and make a home for themselves. So it feels to me like it's just something that is just a general feeling that everyone has.
So the Portland ethos has sort of infected the world, essentially, at this point.
In a way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what would you say is your favorite concept or a sketch or an idea you're most proud of at this point?
I mean, the one that you guys just saw was, I think, one of our favorites. In terms of, we really wanted to start focusing on character. You know, when we thought about the shows that we were fond of, it wasn't concept, you know, that brought people back to a show, but it was actually like going deep into, you know, the history of a character. And we thought with The Feminist that originally we brainstormed a lot of ideas, and we thought, well, everyone will think they were like radical Berkeley, you know, dissenters, or we're in punk bands. And then we're like, no, what if they were corporate? And
So what drove them to their bookstore?
yeah. So that, I think that was one we're quite proud of, and you know, over all the seasons.
Like that piece was, when it started, when we thought that Toni and Candace were in punk bands, it was a little too easy to write. Like it just made too much sense.
Right.
So we thought we should do something where we have to just think a little bit more. Not to overthink anything, but just to like give ourselves some kind of a hurdle.
And you wanted them in the suits with the shoulder pads. So that's
Yeah.
obviously was your main intention.
Yes.
And you've had a number of sort of almost innumerable at this point guest stars on your show. Who is someone who you saw, you know, on set that day and you're just like, I cannot believe that person's here doing our show right now?
For me, maybe Anna Gunn,
Oh yeah, she was great.
because I'm such a fan of Breaking Bad. So I just thought, wow, that they must have just finished.
They had just wrapped, I think.
Yeah, and that felt pretty amazing to me.
Carrie, do you have someone?
I mean, there's been a couple. I mean, Eddie Vedder, I think, was kind of surprising just because the music that he makes in Pearl Jam is so earnest. And I think when somebody allows you to kind of bring them to this level of frivolity that they definitely don't want to show in their music. And he was making fun of himself. And I think that's such a wonderful trait, sort of that humility. And so working with him was really fun. And a lot of people have proven that sense of humor about themselves, which is a really enjoyable space to be in with people.
And you've also had people come to you saying, can I be on the show?
Oh, yeah. I feel like Jack McBrayer was like that. In a way, Justin Long. I think he was
was
communicating with Carrie because they look alike.
Yeah.
They kind of do, actually.
On Twitter, yeah, people would say that my character Lance, which is when I play the guy with the mustache, looks
Oh
just
my
like
God,
Justin Long.
That's crazy. I'm just now dawning on me. Wow.
So we wrote him right in.
And I know the beloved Steve Buscemi not only has appeared as an actor, but he's directed your show. How did that experience, what did he bring to it?
He was kind of our first guest director, I think. And he was just great because he's a director anyway.
Yeah.
And he had a real love for the show. And also he was laid back enough that he wasn't freaking out. He was just so much like, I think we got it.
It seems like him. Yeah.
And he also, in person, looks like Steve Buscemi. You know what I mean? Like,
It's convenient for him as an actor that he
Yeah.
looks like himself.
He's so everything's so exaggerated. It just seems like, oh, that's like the actual guy. But he was great, and he's great on the show, and he's going to direct some more episodes this year as well.
That's great. And Carrie, we also got to see you in Transparent this year. You were great. And I'm wondering, yes. What was it like to go from being in charge and having all the stress of the sort of the creative process on Portlandia and then showing up to Jill's set and having just be like, oh, thank God, like other people are in charge, I can just act. What was that like?
Yeah, it was very freeing. I mean, I was very trusting of Jill's like acumen, and her process is amazing. And just to work with Jay Duplass and Gabby Hoffman was a real treat. And Jill is brilliant. So it was nice to just let go and kind of trust in someone else's vision. It was easier in some ways, but then the challenge of performing was more difficult because I hadn't sort of created the character from the ground up. I kind of came in and had to fill out the backstory.
And did you find, having been on Portlandia for a number of years, had heightened your acting skills or changed the way you, I guess, approach a scene?
I think so. I mean, Fred and I, like I said earlier, have really tried to focus on these characters. And when I don't know it so much in the moment, but when I watch back and we're playing multiple characters in a single episode, I feel grateful that they are very distinct from each other. And I think the ones that we've allowed to kind of develop definitely feel multifaceted.
And when you're sort of existing in Portland, I know you guys are all over the place, but is there a sketch or a character that you feel people most commonly reference or bring up to you?
Oh, reference. I thought you were going to ask who we most commonly feel like.
Or that too.
Or who we see. Well, definitely the feminist bookstore characters, Toni and Candace. And then people say cacao to us a lot.
That seems to happen a lot, yeah.
And how have people generally, I know we talked about this probably like 3 years ago and things have probably changed, but how do you sort of exist in the city without, I mean, because Portland, let's face it, there aren't a lot of celebrities there. So are you able to just walk down the street and get coffee without people?
No, Fred's like
you?
the Statue of Liberty of Portland.
We try to, you know.
No, of
we
course,
try
of
to. It gets tricky when Carrie and I are together.
Sure.
Because when tourists see us, they're like, "This is crazy."
That's like the holy grail. You visit Portland
Yeah.
and they see you guys.
But I say tricky. It's fine. Everyone, you know. I think Portland people are very proud of trying not to notice too much.
Right.
So and they play
They
it
totally
cool.
care though, by the way. I mean, they
Yeah.
really care a lot. And when you shot Comedians in Cars with Jerry Seinfeld,
Yeah.
I was getting texts from all of my friends that
Really?
they'd seen you. Oh yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, everyone's really nice to us there. They are very sweet and welcoming all the time.
And how have you felt the show's impact on the local film scene? Because I know many people who are actors on the show and crew members. It's not just this, oh, it's this cute show. It's actually a really important part of the production culture there.
Yeah, there are a few productions there right now. I don't know where it fits in. I know we're kind of a smaller operation, but we share a lot of crew members with Grimm and a couple
Right.
other shows too.
Right. Well, we have a number of very good questions, so maybe we'll dive into some of these.
Are these from card-carrying members of SAG?
They are. There's people in this room.
Do you guys have your cards on you? Did you get the new plastic ones, like the hard one? Remember when they were like thin and weird?
I feel left out. I don't have one. So generally, Ciara would like to know, what is the writing process for the show? In terms of maybe how do you approach each season? You're deep into the next season, obviously, right now. But what do you how many people do you have? How do you generate ideas?
This year, and I think that's been pretty consistent, there's been 5 of us. And for the last 3 seasons, it's been the same 5 writers. In every year we start out usually with pitches. So we come in with kind of one-line ideas like, what about this? Or I was thinking about this idea, or I would observe this thing, and then we kind of put everything up on the board, and then we just start seeing what sticks, what we return to, or it seems kind of universal, or at least intriguing enough to kind of break into a bigger story. And then from there, I guess we just beat out all the scenes. We kind of try to break the story, and eventually we write scripts. But that's been pretty consistent. Although the last season and this season, we're trying to write a full episode like the one you just saw, different from just disparate sketches. So that changes the writing process slightly, because you really have to think about story and arc and stakes a lot more than you do in a 1-minute sketch.
How often do you come up with a sketch idea and then think it's going to be an episode, and then you shift it to another episode?
Every day.
All the
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
So now you're trying to actually write them cohesively, a flow of 22 minutes or however long.
Yeah, and then sometimes stuff gets thrown out and brought back in. It's like constant juggling.
What's the most absurd
Literally, because then we
idea?
juggle after we finish writing.
I believe that. What's the most absurd idea that you really had hoped would come to fruition that you just had to say goodbye to because it just wasn't working?
I just said something to him that he will not even say out loud. It's so gross and absurd.
You have to share it.
No.
You have to. This is a safe place. No one's going to talk
It
about it
doesn't
after.
feel that safe. We'd all have
Everyone
to
in this room promises not to talk about it after.
No. It's I don't want to conjure.
It's just It's just
Yeah.
crude. It's not offensive. It's just like
my
you'll
God,
just
that's
the
so
word
mean.
"why" will just so many confused.
I'll just say that there are many. We've had many ideas that also that seem funny in the moment, and then we're like, well, how are we gonna?
And have you ever actually killed an idea on set when you're just about to shoot?
Not on set, but we've had some excess sketches at the end that we haven't aired. Pretty rarely, but like
So it's like SNL in a sense. On Saturday,
Same
dress
thing,
rehearsal,
yeah.
you're just killing stuff at 8 o'clock and just
Yeah.
saying this isn't working.
Yeah.
But you don't have Lauren there to tell you. You have to make the decision.
We all have little Laurens inside us.
I love that. You should make T-shirts that say that. It's good. This is a great question from Matt. What percentage of the show is improv?
Where is it now? I almost feel like 50-50. It's still mostly improv, but we map everything out first. So we have like a general sort of outline, like this is what's supposed to happen, and then a lot of what happens is we'll improvise something, and then the editors will circle it and say like, this is where the sketch is.
Very good. Very concise. Keeley would like to know, very practical advice, how did you get your first agent?
Wow.
Which is a tough process, especially in this climate.
I just got an agent this year.
Really?
That's the total truth.
How are you doing?
I had a manager.
Wow.
I had a manager for years, and you know, I came up through, and I think this is it's more common now, but like I came up through channels where you just kind of did things by yourself, like you kind of created your own work and then put yourself in it. And if you didn't see something, you made it so that you could do it. And you know, I was busy. I was working. So yeah, I've decided to finally get an agent. I met with a lot of people. You know, I think it's people whom you trust, people who share the same like goals, and I think people that have a really good filter for BS, I think, is a good thing. You know, just knowing what is important and knowing what isn't. I think is a good call to make.
What were those meetings like when they're all trying to woo you? Is that a bizarre experience?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like being on The Bachelor or something, or The Bachelorette. I don't know, whichever one's better. I don't know.
Bachelorette, clearly.
Yeah, it's awesome. Great. It's a great show. Actually, it's like guilty pleasure. I watch it all the time. Yeah, it's strange to just kind of, you know, assess like what this might look like when you don't. You know, you're not sure because they haven't proven themselves, and you know, it's kind of like a blind date.
Right.
But
what was your experience?
She's at Toys R Us, by the way. That's her agency.
Yeah.
They have
Toys
agents
for
there.
life.
Yeah.
For me, it was the comedian Nick Swartzen. Did you ever see Nick Swartzen? I was friends with him like 2001. And we just became friends.
And you stopped being friends with him after 2001.
After 2001.
Yeah, that was it. Okay.
And then he just got his agent to sign me. It was very nice. Very nice thing to do.
So it was a referral process, if you will.
Yes. I feel like it is that way a lot of the times.
It is, for sure.
Yeah.
And what have you...
Do you guys all have agents? If you don't, talk to me and I'll...
That's very brave of you to
guarantee, or you know what? I'll represent you. I would be the worst agent because I'd be like, oh, that's a no? Okay, no, don't worry about it. Sorry. I just never want to bother anybody.
Takes a very special personality.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that. What is the best advice you've ever received as an actor or just generally in show business? And from whom?
I think Lauren has told us both or collectively not to overthink things, which I think is great advice in terms of like there is a point you get to with performance or writing or any of the, you know, even editing where you've gone past the point of like correcting something. So these guys are just laughing at me. I'm sorry. What? I don't know. Maybe I'm. It's so true. Okay. No, they've laughed at my last answer too, so I'm just like, I don't know what to say.
No, this is like church. We're all just saying amen, sister. That's all we're saying.
Just laugh away. Anyway, don't overthink it. I will not overthink your laughing at everything I'm saying. Fuck it.
The best advice I ever heard was for stand-up comedy is that when you walk out on stage to be smiling. It's like a weird subliminal thing of just like, then the audience is like, what's this person smiling about? But just like, it's like a little trick that I started doing, and it totally works.
But how often are you on a live stage where there's an audience?
Oh, pretty often.
Right now.
We're
on one right now.
Rewind the tape. You'll see I smiled as I came out. I'm not happy. I didn't want to smile. I wanted to be scowling, but, you know.
We also do have another job as a musical director on Seth Meyers' Late Night, so that makes sense now.
Yes.
Cheers for multi-talented people. And who would you say are your industry icons, or within comedy, or just generally in the business, people you look at and think you'd love to emulate their careers? And you cannot say Prince.
I won't say Prince.
No, because his answer is Prince for everything.
I would say Jane Lynch.
Okay.
She really,
A good one.
she just
yeah.
keeps going, and she just, everything that she does, she is very much herself. She's always herself and always really great.
And she can do so many things.
Yeah.
Wonderful. How about you, Carrie?
I mean, I guess it's kind of cliche, but Tina Fey to me is just, I mean, everything is filtered through this amazing brain and intelligence of hers. I think her point of view comes across in everything she does. I think when things lack a point of view, they start to be kind of flimsy. So I really am admiring of everything she does.
And have you guys talked about working on a feature of some kind? Do you guys want to get into movies?
Yeah, at some point. We want to first do our seasons of the show, and then we take everything little by little. So when we get there, we'll want to put something together. But right now, there's this upcoming season that we want to focus on.
Right,
So
you have
don't
to
ask us about movies. That's even distracting me already.
I don't want to take you away from writing your episodes, but if you were to make a movie, what kind of movie excites you when you walk into a theater? When you probably don't have a lot of time to see movies in the theater, but
We would do a Transformers kind of thing, I think.
I think like Toni and Candace in a kind of San Andreas situation.
And the whole movie is us watching the movie. It's our reactions. And then you see some of the movie, too. You see some of San Andreas, and then us like, oh my God, those are great effects.
I wouldn't bank too much on that one.
Well, I don't know. It's making a lot of money.
It is definitely making a lot of money. We talked a little bit about the characters you're proud of. Do you have any other sketches that you've done that you look back on and you just think, that was super funny and I'm really proud we pulled it off?
We kind of watched one today that, just for reference.
Which we don't always do.
We don't always do.
I like to get up in the morning and just...
I mean, we never do it, but we had to like do some reference stuff.
From a
And
previous season, you mean? Okay.
From
Season 3.
season 3, and it was where there was a blackout in
Great,
in Portland, and we were just like, how do we usually make it work when there's multiple characters that we play? And then, I just thought it came together.
But that was also an episode, if I'm not mistaken, where it was almost the whole episode was the same.
Yes,
black. So
I think that's where we
everyone's
started to
dealing
go
with
in
the
that
same.
direction. Yeah.
Right. And there were a lot of great guest stars in that episode. Bill Hader's Australian accent, legendary.
Yeah.
On that front, Lacey would like to know, what was it like working with Jeff Goldblum, who's appeared in numerous episodes?
Oh
at
yeah,
this point?
just about every season, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've kind of turned him into this like strange, weird comedy guy that I think a lot of people forgot that he could do this stuff.
He is a strange, weird comedy guy.
And a great pianist too, by the way, great musician.
Oh yeah. And last season he played a piano teacher, and this is kind of what it's like working with Jeff Goldblum. He's very, he's hyper intelligent. He's like Mensa level kind of intelligent, and he is a little bit. He's just hyper focused. So we shoot on location. So we're always shooting in people's homes in Portland. And I think this couple was really excited, like Jeff Goldblum's coming over today. And they had a piano and he played for 7 hours. They were so excited, but then also like, oh yeah, he's just gonna keep playing that piano even. And then the same day, we also broke the window in their house, so it was a really hard day.
They had a lot of cool stuff to Facebook and Instagram after.
Yeah, but in the end, they loved all of us, and that's the day that I was like, you're like Bill Clinton back there. He was like a politician, just being like, oh, the window's broken, that's fine. We'll take care of that. You were very like, it was very politician-like. It was kind of amazing.
Oh, you mean when I was talking to the family?
Yeah, to the homeowners, I was like, oh yeah, good job. This is what you do. Just
So this brings up a great point. You don't have a set.
Nope.
You don't have a studio space. You're using all real locations and real houses.
Yeah.
What's been the crazier, I guess, location mishap? Because I know you have to lose, the last minute because of weather, or what has happened that's caused you some.
Boy, a mishap.
Well, definitely that broken window was a drag. And floating down a river.
Yeah, I was thinking of the same thing. We really shot something that looks
Last
easy
season
on
there was-
TV,
yeah.
where everyone's floating down this river and trying to hold the river back, and it looks so easy. But when you go there, rivers are really strong, they're not like movie rivers. They're like real rivers. They're like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
care who you are, we're knocking you down.
Yes.
It's like the purpose of a river is to knock you down. It's very, very strong. So that was very like, at least scary.
That was definitely the most nature-focused moment probably you had so far.
I would say.
We have a few questions in here that are sort of repeats of what we've already talked about. Does anyone else have a question? I'll start with you.
Local casting in Portland, do LA actors ever come up there? How open are they to that?
Local casting in Portland, and do LA actors ever go up north? for
Yeah,
the
they
show?
have open auditions. It's what we never. It just turns out that they're local, but if there was someone from LA there, absolutely. They're very good about casting. Like they try to pick the best person who looks interesting.
They don't discriminate against LA
No,
people.
they
is what you're
don't.
saying. Yeah. That's good.
I think they like a kind of blankness. If you see the cutaways of the other actors, there's always a sort of like, which for some reason works. It works for some reason.
Also, there are, and I say this lovingly, a lot of white people in Portland, so
Yes.
it's the blankness kind of like fits into that.
That's
It's all the rain.
twice
honestly.
the amount of. Yeah.
Anyone else? And the orange shirt?
We're moving to Portland next month. Should we live on the east or the west?
Oh, that's a tough
East
one.
side.
East side, definitely.
It's sort of like LA in that way, where the east side here has like a cool artsy cachet that the west side not necessarily lacking, but it's just different scene.
Unless you're uncool. Are you uncool?
She seems very cool. Anyone else? In the glasses back there. You mean the opening title? Yeah.
And then he absolutely loves that first song that you open the whole series with. Are you guys going to do any more original songs like that?
Do you mean like Dream of the 90s kind of thing? At some point, we'll revisit doing something like that. At the moment, we've been putting songs in more towards the middle of the season. But
You mean the original stuff?
yeah, like an original, like a song that pertains to the episode. And then that opening theme is by a band called Washed Out.
I was very disturbed. I heard that on Rush Limbaugh's radio show once as like a transition song. It broke my heart.
You're kidding me.
No. So just make sure you can manage that kind of use in the future.
That's interesting, though.
I mean, hopefully they got paid regardless, but just letting you know.
Huh.
Glasses, gray shirt.
We're going to Portland for the first time next month. What do we do?
I keep telling myself to write an email and just put it in my drafts folder that I can send out, because I have written this exact email to many people. If we can talk, yes, there's so many restaurants. Go to Screen Door, go to Pok Pok. That's it. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Honestly, just enjoy not driving. That's the best thing. Just walk around and have no worries. Doesn't that seem like the best?
I would agree, yeah.
Maybe one more question on the end.
I just wondered, when you write, do you have any kind of like an underlying formula that you can always go back to if you're struggling, or is it just very organic process?
I mean, every time.
She asked about the writing process.
It's actually the opposite of a formula, because sometimes we go, well, we already did that. So, although sometimes we'll say like, well, that worked for this sketch, so there's a way around it. But yeah, usually we just try to think of a new way of saying something.
Carrie, do you have any insights?
Like today we were stuck on something and we realized that it was lacking character. So it was lacking like relatability, a way into the scene. So I think that is something we fall back on, especially starting from about season 2 to 3, where we just were really focusing on character. And that helps us find a way into concepts and into jokes. Instead of asking like how or why, it's like who. And then then you can think about motivation. And then you're kind of moving. That's, I think, the main thing we've been falling back on when we get stuck. It's like today, that's literally how we got unstuck today, just thinking of character.
And for people here most of whom probably write their own material, want to perform their own material, what is your advice, if you have any?
If you perform your own material? I think it's always good to work with someone you like and respect, and just, even if you don't use their feedback, just to run stuff by people. You never know. Sometimes you get like this great bit of something you never saw before, and
To
then
let people read your stuff and
yeah, or just work with someone. I think it's just it's just nice anyway to hang out with someone and
not make it so solitary.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying. That's
No,
because you're a writer.
No, it can be a very lonely process.
Yeah.
Trying to act is hard enough, let alone trying to execute your own work is, very difficult. Carrie, what would your advice be?
I think something similar. I think that it's good to surround yourself with people, or at least one person whom you trust, who you almost consider smarter than yourself, so that you are constantly sort of striving to improve. And then also to not be too precious about things. I think especially in the writing process, you can get really stuck on some idea that you think is great. And it isn't always great. And it's good to be able to throw things away. And sometimes in that process of discarding, you remember the one little bit of it that's worth keeping. So let something go and then see what kind of crawls back to you.
And who's smarter between the two of you? In terms
Carrie.
of that? Okay. Well, your ability
I was
to
going to say the
admit
same
that.
thing.
Well, now we see why it works so well. Well, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Stacey.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thanks, guys.